Welcome back to Interview Ninja Step 42, introducing the 7 liberal arts, which are the foundation of Western education, like it or not, since we now live more in a science age. But underpinning any true education, you need to know and understand the 7 liberal arts. Using exaggeration and questionable opinions to stimulate Corben's thinking. Invitation to revisit beliefs and opinions as your own self-awareness grows.
A questionable opinion is one where I'm suggesting some values, a value set.
That people may not agree with.
Yes, but they won't necessarily be my values. I may use a questionable opinion, like all young people ought to have to go into the army for 2 years, teach them good manners, stop vandalism. And it was good for me and it was good for my generation. It's toughened up. In fact, I think it might be quite good for us to have a war.
Now I'm going to mix in another technique called exaggeration, or reductio ad absurdum in classical rhetorical methods. That's Latin. There's a great book called Trivium, recently published, but based on classical methods of the 7 liberal arts. I gave Corben a copy, hoping one day he will read it. It contains a complete guide to the knowledge and skills and individual needs for a full life. The Trivium only covers the first 3 of the 7 liberal arts, and another book called the Quadrivium covers the other 4. Don't be put off by the fact it is used as a basis for homeschooling by parents who want to avoid their children mixing with non-believers. And it got sort of messed around, rather. The 7 liberal arts were adopted during the Renaissance in the Middle Ages in the Western world. But the classical Greco-Roman liberal arts are a very, very good way to build up your knowledge. During pretty well all my coaching of senior business managers and these courses produced by the Institute of Practical Learning, we leverage those 7 liberal arts quite heavily. And if you have any kind of knowledge of them, you'll see them reappearing time and again. Also, elite training for the last 2,000 years or so was often based on one-to-one coaching, which originated in the Socratic dialogue method, which I use extensively in the Interview Ninja course as I coach Corben, and hopefully you're watching in on that and on a Socratic dialogue method, which currently is impossible to get unless you pay really, really big bucks to an elite college and have a personal tutor.
Because that really, people got healthier after the war on their diet. They developed an attitude of patriotism. They learned loyalty. They learned respect for authority. Okay, so maybe invading Iraq the way President whatever did was a good thing. It was good for young people. In fact, the best thing of all was invading Vietnam.
This is pretty close to home for me because in 1968 I nearly got drafted to go to Vietnam and fight in the jungle. Fortunately, I was working on the repair and fault diagnosis of Chinook helicopters, which were pretty extensively used in Vietnam, so they let me off.
Because the Vietnamese were, not able to fight back really, apart from they invented these improvised explosive stuff. So it was good for the arms industry because we made the truckload of bombs, which we could drop somewhere where they couldn't come back on us. That kept people working. And okay, we killed a few Vietnamese people, not that many. And it was good for them. And look at them now. The Vietnamese is quite a successful country. So we should do it more often. We should have properly invaded Libya rather than just leaving them the way they are now. Look what a shambles that is. We should have gone in. In fact, the British Empire was the best thing ever because the British went round and brought civilization to the world.
How much of that madness can you still hear today? What are the values that the media and newspapers and TV and so on in your country tells you are right and just and fair? This is about forming an adult opinion based on the best facts you can find and understanding what are your own values. If you do not decide where you stand, then others will decide for you. You are one individual in a big society. To be happy, you need to make your own decisions about what things are important and, I hope, decide how you can do the most good for yourself and your loved ones and others. This course builds your personal power. Use it well.
I didn't know if you were waiting for me. I was so riddled with things that were wrong. I didn't know if you were waiting for me to jump in. I was just like,
it was a rant. But it was what I was giving you was at least 5 very questionable
but
opinions.
the thing is, it wasn't your rant. As in, that wasn't. It was your rant, obviously. You were the one who said it. But that wasn't. It was merely to provoke.
Yes, it's a tool.
And something in someone else.
It's a tool. So what I'm saying is, okay, teachers mustn't be afraid to be wrong, and they mustn't be afraid to provoke and prompt with questionable opinions. They're weak opinions, strongly expressed, which invite challenge.
Mm.
I mean, it doesn't have to be about something as serious as war and conscription, Vietnam and Syria and so on. It can be weak opinion as, do you remember the one we watched about which is better, Xbox or what is it? What are those 2 game consoles?
The PS4 and whatever it was. Do you mean the Sheldon one on the Big Bang Theory?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the Xbox and the PlayStation, wasn't it?
Yeah. So my questionable opinion might be to say, well, I think Xbox 4 is miles better than, what was the other one?
The PlayStation. Yeah.
Do you think I remembered it was PlayStation, or do you think I was playing with you?
I think because I just said it, you were playing with me.
Yeah.
Because I said it 30 seconds
Exactly.
previously.
Yeah. But so I was reinforcing you because I crushed you a bit with all my examples of questionable opinions. So I'm trying to build you back up by giving you a chance to be right.
I don't feel like you crossed me. I don't feel like I was not.
Well, you were very patient listening to that rant.
Well, I was going to call you out straight away, but then you just immediately hit me with something else that was wrong. So I knew that was what you were doing. So I just thought, right. I'll let him have his.
Here's to summarize questionable opinions. You pick the questionable opinion you're going to use intentionally to provoke the other person to react, to question your questionable opinion or challenge your questionable opinion and start thinking about their own values. I mean, with which PlayStation thing to use, it's pretty easy, but with other things, for example, which car to buy, or which theatre to go to,
so
or what to buy as a present for your mum.
All of these points feel like, so far, that if you boil them down, what you're really doing is keeping your student or whoever you're talking to feel like they're just about to overtake you. If you understand what I'm
Yes,
saying.
I do.
So the vagueness is they think they know more specifics about the thing that you're being vague about, say. And
or can find out.
Yes, or have the ability to take that knowledge above you one step further. And
with effort.
Yes.
Not now.
No, but
it's prompt them to go and do some research.
They're going to have to up their game.
Yes.
But only a tiny bit, and then they'll be the top.
Yeah.
Whereas in reality, the moment they begin to do that acceleration, you just pull up to a little bit ahead again, and they have to keep climbing.
Maybe not. You may, as it were, yield that ground.
But
maybe you got them where you wanted them to get to.
I'm trying to think of an example as to. It's like if you were if you took a little kid out and you said, let's have a race, and obviously a 6-year-old boy isn't going to beat an 18-year-old boy in a race, but you want them to not just immediately stop playing the game, so you run just that much further ahead of them so they don't just give up.
We can see here Corben growing in his understanding and using a great analogy to summarize what we have been discussing. He's using two soft skills here, the soft skill of choosing a good analogy and the soft skill of summarizing. In English lessons, you might hear this described as doing a précis.
It's a beautiful example. That's what parents do. Yeah, absolutely. And when you play games with little kids.
The thing is now, Graham, I never know anymore if you're genuinely saying these things or whether you're empowering me to bring it to the next level. But that's how it is in my head, nonetheless.
I try to be authentic, and I genuinely. That's why I try not to do the body language thing too early, because that's a real inhibitor. Okay, these techniques, you can't tell people about these techniques too soon, and you can't use them too deliberately. But if I'm going to get you up to being proper adult, you need to know when people are manipulating you.
I don't feel like many people do this, though.
No, they don't. You're right. You're right. I've studied long and hard to use these to learn these techniques, to learn how to use them with power. And even I don't get it right all the time by any means. But if you watch the videos back, you will see repeatedly me using some of these techniques. They're for a purpose. So, coming back to exaggerate, I often exaggerate wildly. Because, well, why do you think, now you know the thinking, why do you think I really exaggerate sometimes?
This course is called Interview Ninja, and I think it would be fair to say, even at this time, and it's 2021 at the moment, that when you go for interview, pretty well all the questions will fall into two different types. There'll be those that ask about your specific knowledge of a specific subject, and often today those will be things like something to do with science. But the other type of question you will get will be based on the 7 liberal arts, and they will be asking indirectly or directly for your opinions on certain things and your values and your attitudes. So it behoves you well to understand yourself to the point well enough so that when you face that challenge, you can come up with a good answer, possibly one you've rehearsed. But if it's a question you haven't seen exactly like that, that won't matter, because fundamentally you will understand yourself and you will be able to reply in an authentic way. That's going to impress the interviewers, unless they're thick themselves, in which case probably that's an interview you don't want to get through, and you should walk away from that interview, pass or fail, and revisit your own opinion on, is this a company or a group that I want to work with? Party on.